This news is coming to you live from our studios here at Adesawe Kanda, and also coming to you live in KSP 107.1 FM in Tamale. Coming up this morning, Government Tax and Minerals Commission to supervise the completion of Damang Mine takeover by indigenous mining firm engineers and planners after a merged top at the end of a competitive bidding process. Also, patrons of intercity coaches to pay more following a less than 24-hour ultimatum by the VIP transport to government to reduce fuel prices or face a 25% price increment. And much later, ECG cautions customers in part of Accra as it undertakes major transformer replacement and upgrade. I am Enyonam Haligah. Details of our headlines and other stories. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We're going to a first story now where government has approved Engineers and Planners Limited as a successful bidder for the Damang mining lease. A report submitted to the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources by the Minerals Commission's Tender Committee says the indigenous mining firm recorded the highest evaluated score among the four competing companies. According to the committee, engineers and planners met all mandatory requirements, showed proof of access to at least $500 million in financing, and demonstrated the technical and operational capacity to run the mine. Take a listen to the Secretary for the committee, Joseph Kofi Iroko, explaining the rationale for the recommendation.
And then when you go to technical and enjoyment experience, you will see that disparity in the bank. EMP demonstrated clearly that they were up to, or they had the experience to be able to do the job as opposed to hit go for 18.4%. When it comes to methodology and work plan, we scored EMP 9 out of 10, hit go for 6.2 out of 10. On the qualification, EMP had 9.6, hit go for had 9.2.
And that was the Secretary for the Tender Committee for the Lands and Natural Resources, where the government has approved Engineers and Planners Limited as the successful bidder for the Damang mining lease. And the minister has since approved the recommendation and directed the Minerals Commission to begin the necessary regulatory steps to complete the process. Now, away from that, a new patriotic party has called on Ghanaians to hold President Mahama and his government accountable over the double standard against LGBTQ plus issues. A proponent of the bill, Reverend John Intim Fojo, says any attempt to deprioritize the matter marks of deception and insists there must be an apology from the government.
The NDC weaponized the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill, using it as a political tool to deceive eminent clergy, our imams, our revered traditional leaders, and the good people of Ghana. The moment the NDC assumed power in 2025, the narrative began to change, faced with the realities of governance, including risk to the World Bank and IMF funding, as well as constitutional challenges. The NDC government moved from push the bill at all costs to manage how it is introduced and structured.
That was a proponent for the anti-LGBTQ plus bill, Reverend John Intim Fojo. Meanwhile, a co-sponsor of the anti-LGBT bill, Emmanuel Kwesi-Bedra, has criticized Reverend Intim Fojo for what he describes as politicization of the proposed bill. The Whole West lawmaker maintains the bill remains fairly on track, with assurances from the presidency that it will receive assent once Parliament gives the approval and the necessary constitutional review process. Now, away from that, patrons of intercity coaches may soon have to pay more following the issuance of less than 24-hour ultimatum by the VIP transport to government to reduce fuel prices or face a 25% price increment. Meanwhile, other transport unions have suspended the implementation of new fares, awaiting President Mahama's meeting with Cabinet on Thursday, April 9. The General Secretary for the Ghana Road Transport Coordinating Council, Ohene Yeboah, told journalists that the union have agreed to hold off on implementing the new fares until cabinet meeting, urging the government to consider scrapping some taxes on fuel, which they say contribute significantly to the current price buildup.
We'll tell the unions to hold their fire for a while and let's talk to the ministry. Because we have always done this and we get a good results.
That was the General Secretary for the Ghana Road Transport Coordinating Council, Ohene Yeboah. Now, residents across part of Accra are being advised to brace for temporary power interruptions as the Electricity Company of Ghana rolls out a major transformer upgrade aimed at stabilizing electricity supply in the capital. The 240 million cedi investment will see the replacement of aging transformers across 8 substations. 2 transformers across the substations in Adenta, La Teshinungwa, Nimajo, Bachuna, Lashibi will be upgraded from 20 to 30 MVA. Let's take a listen to the General Manager of the Sub Transmission Accra, Francis Kojo Achiche.
We are doing this project just to increase capacity at the substation, to increase reliability, to improve efficiency in such that customers within the enclave will enjoy reliable supply, very good voltage, and so also in prepared to get new customers connected onto the substation.
And finally, the Office of the Special Prosecutor has conducted coordinated court-authorized search operated at 5 fuel dumps associated premises of bulk distribution companies. The raid forms part of the ongoing investigation into suspected petroleum sector fraud. The operation, carried out across multiple locations, targets an alleged scheme involving the under-declaration of petroleum import, falsification of product types during port depot, and tax evasion. According to a post on the OSP's official X page, preliminary findings suspect coalition between certain BDCs and officials within the National Petroleum Authority, the Ghana Revenue Authority, and the National Security Secretariat. The scheme is also believed to have involved intermediaries facilitating illicit financial transfers. The entities under investigation, including Plantain Oil, Centio Oil, Aquaba Oil, Sahara Oil and Gas Limited, and Chase Petroleum. Now to some health stories for many Ghanaians, especially young people. HIV testing has become a preferred option because it offers privacy, convenience, and quick results. But health authorities are raising concerns about counterfeit HIV test kit reported on the Nigerian market, warning they could undermine Ghana's HIV control efforts if they find its way into the country.
The NDC weaponized the Human Sexual Rights and Family.
We expect people to take notes of those batch numbers. You know, we gave clearly the names, photographs, and everything, so that if they are going for such tests, it is their right to find out from the lab the type of diagnostic they are using. It doesn't matter the barriers we built, the efforts we put in. Consumers should be well educated. So if you have a well educated consumer, even if the product slips through, that consumer will become the final barrier to alert us. We've communicated with healthcare professionals, institutions, and all places that they find, they return them to us.
That was Professor Kwabna Frimpong Manso Opuni. He's the Chief Executive Officer for the Food and Drugs Authority. That brings us to the end of the first half of this morning's bulletin. For more news, please check our website at 3news.com. I am Enyonam Haligah. Business News is right on.
Follow us on social media, Twitter at 3FM927, Facebook at 3FM927, and also on 3news.com. Follow us on social media, Twitter at 3FM927, Facebook at 3FM927, and also on 3news.com.
Time for business news here on Sunrise 3FM 92.7. Coming up this morning, fuel-driven cost pressures trigger slide April inflation as Ghana maintains strong price stability outlook. Also, the Ghana Revenue Authority reports success with modified taxation scheme for the informal sector. Much later, Public Interest and Accountability Committee set to launch 2025 annual report on petroleum revenue management today. Details of our headlines and other stories, please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Now, go on to a first story where market research firm IC Research is projecting modest rise in inflation in April 2026. This, it says, is driven largely by rising fuel prices linked to the global energy market shocks, although the overall price stability remains firmly intact.
IC Research says domestic petrol prices have risen by 10.9%, while diesel has surged by over 32% since the start of the year. This has been attributed mainly to higher global energy prices triggered by ongoing geopolitical tensions, as well as a nearly 5% depreciation of the cedi. Despite these pressures, IC Research maintains that inflation remains well anchored. It is forecasting an annual inflation rate of 3.4% for April, with month-on-month inflation expected to rise to 1%. The firm notes that Ghana's current inflation rate of 3.2% is significantly below the Bank of Ghana's target range, providing a strong buffer against external shocks. It adds that although escalating energy prices could pose upside risks, the overall inflation outlook is expected to remain in single digits throughout 2026, supported by stable policy measures and the continued impact of lower VAT rates. Meanwhile, headline inflation has declined for the 15th consecutive month, with both food and non-food inflation recording marginal drops. IC Research believes this trend reinforces Ghana's return to price stability even as global uncertainties persist.
That was a 3 Business report on fuel-driven costs as to trigger the slide April inflation uptick as Ghana maintains strong price stability outlook. Now, away from that, the Ghana Revenue Authority has expressed strong satisfaction with the rollout of the modified taxation scheme, describing the initiative's progress as very positive for the country's informal sector. Speaking on the scheme's impact, technical advisor to the Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Elsie Apaoklu, revealed that the system is successfully meeting its core objective. This brings flexibility and simplified tax solutions to resident individuals and small business owners in the informal sector.
Under the leadership of our able Commissioner General Anthony Kwesi Sapon, we have rolled out schemes to implement, to see how to make doing business and paying tax very efficient, very simple, and very promising for our SMEs. And so far, it is going very well. Just by dialing *880#, you'll be able to register and then also pay your taxes. It is the little contributions that we make as individuals, residents, and businesses that helps our country to grow. We have simplified the system. From your bedroom, by dialing *880#, you can pay your taxes. You can download this app on your Play Store, your Apple Store, on your mobile phones, on your computer, and pay. If you don't have an Android or an iPhone, you can also use the USSD codes to do this. All of this is to ensure that everyone is given an opportunity to participate in the development of our nation.
Some other stories is Ghana is losing an estimated 2.5 billion every year by exporting its commodities in its raw state rather than processing them locally. The Minister for Trade, Agribusiness and Industry, Elizabeth Ofosu-Adjare, revealed the staggering figures during the 2026 Quill Business Forum.
The Trade, Agribusiness and Industry Minister cautioned that the country's continued reliance on the export of primary goods such as raw gold, cocoa, cashews, and timber is effectively exporting wealth and jobs to foreign nations. Ofosu-Adjare explained that the loss represents the value addition gap, the difference between the price of raw materials and the significantly higher price of finished or semi-finished products on the global market.
Ghana loses an estimated 2.5 billion annually in unrealized value from raw agricultural produce alone, an amount that represents not a lament, but a clear opportunity this government is determined to seize.
To combat this, government has announced the finalization of a framework designed to pivot the economy away from its colonial-era export model toward a value addition strategy.
Advancing the revitalization of our special economic zones, repositioning them as active industrial ecosystem oriented towards agro-processing and light manufacturing rather than passive export enclaves. We have finalized the National Agribusiness Policy, which has been submitted for cabinet consideration. It sets out a deliberate pathway to capturing the value that currently leaves Ghana in the form of unprocessed agricultural commodities.
The Trade Minister noted that while government is providing the regulatory framework and infrastructure, the private sector must lead the charge in establishing processing plants and refineries to turn Ghana's raw material bounty into made-in-Ghana finished products for the world.
That was a report on Ghana losing $2.5 billion annually over raw agricultural exports. Now, the Public Interest and Accountability Committee is scheduled to release its 2025 annual report in Accra on April 8, 2026. The statutory report provides a comprehensive audit of how Ghana managed its petroleum wealth over the past year, serving as a critical tool for transparency and public oversight.
The upcoming launch is expected to address several pressing issues in the energy sector, most notably a persistent decline in crude oil and gas production. Stakeholders are bracing for data that will detail the extent of this production slump and its subsequent impact on national revenue targets. The 2025 report will provide a granular breakdown of total volumes of oil and gas extracted, an exact dollar amount generated for the state, how petroleum funds were distributed across the annual budget funding amount, ABFA, the Ghana Heritage Fund and the Ghana Stabilization Fund, an assessment of whether government adhered to the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, highlighting both achievements and legal infractions. A central feature of PIAC's annual disclosure is the naming and shaming of entities or agencies that have failed to comply with the law. The 2025 report is anticipated to highlight specific instances where petroleum revenues may have been misapplied or where reporting requirements were bypassed. PIAC's findings often trigger parliamentary inquiries and public debate regarding the long-term sustainability of Ghana's oil industry.
It's now time to look at how the cedi is faring against major trading currencies and how some key commodities are also faring on the global market.
On the interbank foreign exchange market, the dollar is selling at 11 cedis, 1 pesewa. It gained 1 pesewa. The British pound is selling at 14 cedis, 59 pesewas. It gained 3 pesewas. The euro is selling at 12 cedis, 74 pesewas. It also gained 4 pesewas. However, be guided that these figures could be higher at a forex bureau near you. On the global commodities market, Brent crude is trading at $107 per barrel. Gold is trading at $4,702.43 per ounce, up by $52.58. Cocoa is trading at $3,028 per ton, down by $207.
That was an update from the Forex and commodities markets. I'll be off for business news here on Sunrise 3FM 92.7. For more news, please check our website at 3news.com. I am Enyonam Haligah. Be safe.